And welcome to Project 2. This is more of an ELA sort of book exploration task. And a lot of it is maybe more writing related seeming, but obviously reading and writing are closely intertwined, but especially in the middle grades. I mean, students end up both showing what they know through writing, but there's also there's a huge paper called Writing to Read that's free online if you just Google Writing to Read. Maybe Writing to Read, Steve Graham. And there's another author, I think Dolores Perrin. Writing to Read shows a strong relationship that doing targeted writing exercises can actually enhance reading comprehension. So in case you're confused about why there are seemingly more writing-based tasks here, it's because it creates sort of goal-directed reading, and that helps reading comprehension. So even here you'll see whatever the book we end up using is, we're exploring character motivation. So now all of a sudden students have a goal or a purpose for their reading. They know they're going to be highlighting or sticky noting or annotating for character motivation. This also enhances close reading and repeated readings, which both help. Repeated reading helps reading fluency, and close reading helps reading comprehension. So even if students read the book once through and then they read it again for character motivation, or as a teacher you can differentiate by pointing them to certain chapters, maybe even page numbers that are integral for character motivation or whatever your tasks end up being, then that will help them. Now, as students are reading again to add to this goal direction, one of the things we want is for them to annotate. So the way that they do that, they can do it directly in their book, but I also like EasyBib. Let's say we're going to do the Giver. So I also like EasyBib. So here's a screenshot, but I'm actually going to just sign right in to my Giver quotes. Let's say edit. I just want to view this project. So EasyBib, it has a free version. I also pay for it just because I use it so much. So once you're signed in, you click on your projects. I'm going to click on my Giver one. So before you start a project, you always enter any sources. So for ELA, you might only have the source book. It's also excellent for research projects. I happen to focus on Digo before, but EasyBib would be a wonderful tool to use as well for research. This is something, so I already went through the book and found all these quotations. This is, again, something you can do to differentiate for your students. If they're having a lot of trouble finding quotes, you can model this way, or again, if you want them to specifically work on paragraph organization without, quote-unquote, wasting time on finding quotes. Let's say they didn't annotate well enough the first time around. You would, still want to teach them how to find proper quotations, but if right now all you want them to do is write a well-organized paragraph, then you can provide some of the quotations. So here, if you're going to write a new note, I don't have the book with me, but let's say that. So I'm going to pick my source. Here's my direct quote. Jonas was unhappy about not seeing color. I mean, that's a made-up quote, but whatever. I'll say it's page 80. And I love this organization piece here. You can color code. You can add tags. You can add it to groups. So I haven't set up groups, but maybe I'm going to color code it. This is a green one, and I'm going to tag it as color Jonas and unhappy. Again, the quote would probably be longer, but let's say this is how we're choosing to do it. Save note, and then you can move it around. All right, so this is about, no, for some reason, the title didn't get saved, so I'm just going to call it unhappy. So it is very easy, and then once you have your ones, I'm saying this is about sameness, but maybe I want to change it. I want to make it blue, and I'm going to call it something else. That's fine. So again, this is a really organized way of doing it. Another thing I like is it prompts you to write the thesis. So here are all my random quotes, but what am I really going to write about? Jonas is motivated, again, we're talking about character motivation, for his desire for individuality, meaning he wants himself and others to be able to make choices for themselves. So now I'm like, ooh, this quote has to do with choice. Our people made that choice, the choice to go to sameness. Ooh, here's another one about choice. Color choice. Again, I have a typo in here, but I want them. Jonas said angrily, it isn't fair that nothing has color, so he doesn't feel like he had a choice about that. So, again, this is useful for when students are reading whatever kind of content area or reading, and then they're gathering all of their information. A lot of these for me happen to be direct quotes, because for ELA I do more of that, but if it were social studies, you would have concepts, a very similar way that we use Deagle Library in Project 1. So now that you have all of your annotations, now you're ready to show your ideas. Well, actually, you want to think about paragraph structure. So one thing I've done for that is big idea. Why do people do what they do, right? This is why we're even talking about character motivation. And then here I have a mnemonic that I use a lot for paragraph writing, which is called T-Bear. This is if they were to write a paragraph, but as you will see, maybe this is an intermediate step. They write a paragraph, and then they will do the slideshow, which is the last step of this project. So to see it larger, I'm actually going to open it up. But I don't want to edit this form, I want to use it. So T-Bear stands for topic, background, evidence, that's the quotation, analysis, and restatement. So what this does, this is reusable for any time they're writing a paragraph. Again, this is based off of the self-regulated strategy development framework, which has a really good sort of gradual release of responsibility for students, because as they fill out a lot of these, right, this is completely giver essay specific. This is like you're writing a paragraph, you're using T-Bear. And I even cue them with different sentence types, right? Although blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, although Jonas, thought he was happy, he was not. Again, I expect more from my students' background. So words used at the time, in particular, specifically, notably. And again, things about background. So after I might just do more as background. Usually I have them give a sentence summary. The giver is set in a dystopian world where there are few choices, and Jonas is the main character who is getting an education from the giver, and so on. And then in one scene, Jonas is complaining about not having enough choice. Then I would put in the quote, blah, 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 and so on. So right now, again, this is very writing related, but it helps close reading, right? Let's say I did find my quote, which is from reading a book once or twice, but then to go back and find this background, I'm just making up off the top of my head, but students would have to go back and reread, and again, that those close reading. And you can even provide the thesis, and then students are even more goal-oriented in their reading. Like, what are we really looking for? Oh, his motivation. So why did he do what he did? And then at the end, again, just more for regulation. You want to make sure the students did everything, and you can submit it. This will all end up in a spreadsheet that students can then use. That's basically a draft. This is your whole paragraph right here. I can leave this page. That's okay. And you can do a similar thing. You can provide a model. Like I said, this is the plan that we just looked at. And again, this is for any sort of paragraph-based writing exercise. But again, we're going to go into doing the slideshow in a second, so we have more diverse action and expression and engagement. And you'll notice that my sentences are exactly the same. So here's my model paragraph. This is very useful for differentiating reading and writing instruction. And you can even have high-achieving students, maybe from previous years, samples there. But you can maybe even have students from your own class to serve as the models if they're comfortable sharing, and be mindful of rotating whose models you're using. Another way to scaffold is to do sort of a closed fill-in-the-blank section. This might be overly spoon-feedy, but again, students do want to break out of it. So some of my students, if this is the best they can do, that's great. And again, it's scaffolded, but it really forces them to use quotations, to really analyze, to provide background. I like providing this kind of context, because otherwise I might get 3 sentences and they might not be focused and I might not get a quotation. So this makes it really clear what the expectations are, how they can plan, right? This is through the form. I'll let that load. Oh, sorry, I'm in editing mode. Here, I'll view the live form. And again, this is just all done. This is a Google form. There's lots of resources on how to build Google Forms. I've inserted some images and then done paragraph text and then used checklists. So this is part 1 of sort of the research and organization of ideas for ELA.